Welcome to Silver Spring Stories, a conversation about immigration and community. I'm Faith Davis Ruffins. I'm a curator at the National Museum of American History, part of the Smithsonian, and I'm welcoming you for the entire team, the Americans All, the Immigration Migration Initiative team. And if any of the people in the team are in this room now, please stand up so other people can see you in case they want to talk to you after the program. Thank you so much. These are all people from our team at the Smithsonian. So we come from different museums and educational centers and research units within the Smithsonian Institution, and we're working together as a team to research, document, and preserve, and eventually present to the public the long history of immigration and migration in this nation's past and present. Please note that we want to thank the funding for this effort comes from internal Smithsonian funds that were provided by the Smithsonian Consortium on Understanding the American Experience, and the director of that program is here now, Michelle Delaney. Thank you very much. The Americans All Initiative is a long-term and multifaceted project. We expect that today's program is the beginning of a set of conversations and engagements that will help the Smithsonian document and preserve this complex history and the many diverse cultures. We plan to begin a major collecting effort to acquire artifacts, images, and stories to more fully diversify the Smithsonian's collections. Eventually, perhaps 5 or 6 years from now, we hope that these efforts will culminate in a folklife festival on immigration and migration and a major exhibition at the National Museum of American History. This is one of our first steps along the way. We're thrilled to have conversations, especially with the Silver Spring organizations and community members, in order to understand a diversifying American community. So on to our program. Let me introduce the moderator for this evening, Phil Tajitsu Nash. Phil is a writer, lawyer, and activist. He teaches Asian American Studies at the University of Maryland, College Park, and he was curator of the 2010 Smithsonian Folklife Festival, Asian Pacific Americans, Local Lives, Global Ties. Thank you.
Thank you, Faith. Just want to say thank you very much to everyone here. It's great to look out and see this crowd and to see all these people who are interested in this issue. And we have a distinguished panel here to speak with us. And as Faith said, this is the beginning of a conversation. Now, when you hear the word immigration or immigrant in the national discourse, it's not always an invitation to a discussion. It's sometimes used in a political sense or used in a way that's meant to divide us, not to draw a circle to bring us all in. So it's important that we have these type of dialogues here in this wonderful community of Silver Spring, here in this historic center, and that we have so many people who've been activists and people who've built this beautiful community. I'd like to just look around this room and just say, how many of you have been involved in building this community of Silver Spring sometime in your life? Just look at all the hands that have been raised here. Let's give a round of applause to all these wonderful activists who've helped to build this beautiful community. So tonight, we are going to have this conversation. This is all about documenting a community. Because what has to happen if you're going to have a good conversation about immigrants, you have to start with a premise that immigrants are people in their communities. And this is one community right outside of DC which has had a tremendous impact on the DC area, and it's had a tremendous impact in turn on a number of communities that are here. And there are people of all different backgrounds here in the Silver Spring area. You have people of all the different Asian ancestries, African ancestries, 22% are Latinos. There's been a long African American history here. The start of the history here in Silver Spring goes back to 1840. You've probably heard about the guy who sees these little flecks of mica in the water and says, oh, this is a silver spring. And so Francis Preston Blair, the publisher and the person who was an advisor to Andrew Jackson, had a house, and he got started here. There's also a Blair House, not only here in Silver Spring, but right opposite the White House, showing what type of an impact the Blair family had. So the Blair family, the Lee family, some of the other prominent families set up houses here in this area, just over the DC border, and they were able to have a tremendous impact, oftentimes doing many good things in this community. And throughout the 1840s, 50s, 60s, they kept building. But we have to remember, because we're looking at this history, not just one of immigrants, but also people who were incorporated into this area. Incorporation means there were Native American people. There were Piscataway people who were from the Algonquin background who were here way before the 1840s. So these people were incorporated into the situation. We have immigrants to the situation. We have some people who were brought here involuntarily, some of the slaves. And don't forget, Maryland has a fascinating history, being a state that was in the North but had many slaveholders, including some of its most prominent citizens. We have people like E. Brooke Lee, who and his family. We had Blair, who himself was a Free Soil Democrat, meaning that he owned slaves, but he was calling for an abolition of slavery. So they kicked him out of the Democratic Party, and he joined the Radical Republicans at that time. Kind of the opposite of where we are now in terms of the national discourse. But he was basically a person who got the history started, and I'm going to give you 1 minute of history here. And we have Jerry McCoy here. Where's Jerry? We have people from the Silver Spring Historical Society who can give you a lot more depth through walking tours, through reading their website. So I encourage you to not stop with just this 1 minute synopsis I'm giving you, but go back and read and hear a little bit more of this. When you look at a community, it's partly a built community and it's partly a lived community. So we have different milestones that we can recognize. We have 1873, the first B&O railroad stopped here. 1908, the first trolley line stopped here. 1938, we had the first strip mall in America right here in Silver Spring. That's for better or for worse. We had the first, 1947, the first Hex department store that was built in a suburb was built here. We had in 1962 ordinances outlawing discrimination in places of public accommodation. So again, this was right in the heart of the civil rights struggle, where blacks up until that time could not come and freely associate in downtown Silver Spring. So again, that's part of the less positive history that we have here, and we have to acknowledge it. The history of the United States has high points and low points, and up until 1962, some of our brothers and sisters couldn't even come and shop in Silver Spring. So if you look at what's happened in the more recent times, in 1978, we had the opening of our metro station here, and it opened up a big discussion about how we were going to develop Silver Spring. There are people talking about the Silver Triangle, the American Dream, building a lot of these tall skyscrapers that you see around here. And a lot of people started coming into this area. So nowadays we see communities, we see Africans, we see people from Morocco, Ethiopia, we see Italian communities, Mexican communities, Salvadoran communities, Jamaican communities, people from the Middle East, and some of the people are right here on this stage. So this is a very complex and beautiful history. It's a history of moving from intolerance to tolerance, and hopefully with the help of the Smithsonian and with all of you in here, we're going to move beyond simple tolerance to understanding and maybe even cooperation. And so tonight we want to welcome our special guests here, and many of you who have equal amounts of knowledge in the audience. I hope you will participate in the future discussions that we're going to have. So let's just talk about the format that we're going to have here. We have three organizations, or actually four. We have Asian American Lead, which is a group that started dealing with Vietnamese Americans and now deals with other Asian American youth. They originally started in D.C. and then moved out to Montgomery County. Same thing, we have the Gandhi Brigade, which did a lot of work with youth and using video to help empower the youth, another group that's moved out of D.C. Again, it shows the migration of people. Even though these are immigrants, they still are not just staying in one place. They are migrating to another place. So these community service organizations moved from downtown D.C. out here to Montgomery County. We have the Muslim Community Center, Mr. Qureshi, a longtime activist there and respected community leader. He's going to talk a little bit about his background and about what the center is doing. And then the Latino Economic Development Corporation with Manny Hidalgo, again, someone who's done a lot of work to empower his community and the broader Silver Spring community. So it's wonderful that they are here. We have some students who are going to be helping us. We're going to have some time at the end for questions. And this is not going to be a typical presentation where somebody just gets up and throws a lot of facts at you. This is a research-oriented thing because it is a Smithsonian, but at the same time, it's about interactivity. It's about hearing some of your input. And that being said, we have some index cards out in the lobby. If you have ideas for future programming, if you have contacts that we should follow up on, don't forget, this is not just an idle conversation, then we're going to go away. This is something that's going to lead to permanent exhibits at the Smithsonian down on the mall. This is going to lead to a Folklife Festival out on the mall. This is going to lead to a lot of other things that are going to be part of our national discussion, as well as our local community history. So please, if you've got ideas, go out to the table out there and write some ideas down on index cards. And please be sure and pick up literature from all the groups that are outside there. They're doing great work, and we want to support them. So let's start with our presenters. We're going to have each of them in turn speak. We're going to start with the Asian American Lead and Gandhi Brigade people. And so shall we start with the video? Yeah. Okay, so let's please start with the video.
My name is Dalila Pineda and I'm from El Salvador.
When my mother was pregnant with me in Jamaica, she flew here, had me in Tacoma Park, and then flew back. So I'm Jamaican. I like to say Jamaican, first generation.
I came from Indonesia.
I'm from the Philippines.
Parents are from Thailand and I am from here.
My name is Noemi Sanchez and I'm from Mexico and I've been here for 7 years.
Hello, my name is Bronte Moreau and I was born in the Silver Spring area. My mom is from the United States and my dad is from France.
I was born here.
Gandhi Brigade was a community for me because there was like other kids that were like me from other countries.
Italy as a community is like a huge family. And, yeah.
Gandhi Brigade is a community for me because I can come here and I feel comfortable with the people and I'm able to talk to them about anything. And
Gandhi Brigade is a community for me because it brings kids like me to work with adults and try to bring certain issues to light in the community.
I think A-Lead is a fun place to be.
And Gandhi Brigade, it's a community for me because here I find myself, and actually because my friends come over here, and then it's not all my friends, but they're like kind of my sisters and brothers, and here is like my house.
We're all like one big family, even though we come from different families. We're in this club together, and it just makes me feel really like we're family. Yeah.
It's awesome. I love A-Lead so much.
Okay, so if you could all quickly repeat your names and where you or your parents are from.
Hello, my name is Lisa. My parents, they're from Vietnam, but I was born here, and also my dad, he's Cambodian, so yeah.
Hi, my name is Wenjing, and my entire family, including me, is from China.
Hi, my name is Megan, and me and my family are from the Philippines.
Hi, my name is Noemi Sanchez, and I'm from Mexico.
Hi, I'm Samantha, and my family and I are from El Salvador.
Hi, my name is Bronte, and I'm from here, but my dad is from France, and my mom's from here.
Hey, my name is Khadijah. Both my parents are born in Ethiopia, but I was born in New York.
What challenges have you faced as an immigrant or the child of immigrants in Silver Spring?
As a child of immigrant parents, it's really tough for me. Well, since for example, my mom, had high expectations for me since she was raised in Vietnam. They had poor education. She came to America for her future family to have a lot of good education and stuff, more stuff than Vietnam, because Vietnam is really poor. And pretty much every day she always reminds me saying that you should be grateful for having education, and she would be do good grades, major in medical field, because my mom, well, since my family problems is my mom, she doesn't have a job. She pretty much a stay-home mom because she take care of my brother who's a special ed, and my dad who's recently retired from his job because he had injured his neck. So it's really a troublesome for me, because she always reminds me saying you should do well, get in the medical field, and so you could take care of me and take care of your parents and your brother, since your parents don't know English and your brother can't be useful because he's special ed.
My problem when I came here was the language, how I speak, how I spoke and everything. So it was so difficult to deal with it, because my parents are they speak Spanish, and in school I speak English. So it was so difficult to balance Spanish and English. And actually, we came here for a better education, and my parents always tell me, and putting me my things, telling me you better be good on education, because we came here for a better education, and you better have a good grade so you can be somewhere in your life. So it was so difficult for me for balance English and Spanish.
Okay. I came here in 3rd grade, and so my problem was fitting in. I came with a thick accent, and so, kids would make fun of me, and maybe the food that I ate and clothes that I wore. So I had struggled with that. And but I guess I was more prepared than most people who just came here, because my mom told me that prepared me for coming here. She taught me English, and I'm sorry. She also told me that if I didn't speak up, people would step on me, and that really scared me, because I was 3rd grade. Yeah, I took it literally. Yeah.
Okay, so the next question is, has it been difficult for you to balance your family life or your country's culture with your everyday life in the United States?
One problem that I've had throughout my life is the fluency in my own language. I came here when I was 5, so it was easier for me to learn English than for me to remember the Spanish that I had learned. So, and since my mom didn't know English, she wanted to practice, so she didn't really enforce the speaking Spanish only at home rule that most parents have. So I forgot my Spanish, and my English became better, so I helped her practice. But that's something I've always wanted, is to be fluent in Spanish. So it's hard trying to balance out the English in school, as well as the Spanish that I'm learning, and the Spanish that I try to practice at home, as well as helping my mom practice her English. And another thing that I have a lot of problems with is the whole expectations at home, like being able to do your chores, to cook, to help around the house, and to keep balance with your studies. Because my parents always tell me you do good at school, but you're never good at like cleaning your room. So yeah, that's a big problem I have.
Well, I have like similar problems. I have to keep up with my language, which is Chinese, but also I have to keep up my fluency in English. I have to be the translator, the interpreter for my family because they don't speak English, and I have to help them with mostly everything that they need to translate on. And also, some of my culture problem with America is like for special Chinese holiday that we believe we burn fake money so the deaf won't like receive them. But some Americans thought that we were like trying to catch something on fire, so they like pouring water over it.
How are you getting connected to the community in Silver Spring?
I feel as if I stay connected with the community, firstly through Gandhi Brigade. We deal with a lot of projects and we talk about things that go on in the community, and it's interesting and it opens your minds and you're able to have discussions with people. I also feel like I stay connected just in my own school. I attend Blair and there's many different groups of kids there, and so just being around all these people with different stories, with different backgrounds, I feel like I stay connected to the community. Both of my friends, their parents are from different places, so just like being with them and eating their food and trying to talk to their parents, and so that's how I stay connected.
Well, I stay connected through my Muslim community, so I volunteer there a lot, and whenever I'm there, I get insight on different cultures because most of the people there are from Africa and they're immigrants from South Asia. So especially like during the month of Ramadan when I'm fasting, I break my fast over there and I get like to eat a lot of Bengali food and it's the best. And so I stay connected through them and like helping out in the community.
Okay. Thank you very much to all of you and for your answers and for coming here to speak about your experiences.
Well, before our youth panel goes, are there any questions that any of you have? I know this is not exactly the format, but we have a few extra minutes. Are there any questions that you have? You've got these articulate young people here with a diverse range of experiences. Any questions come to mind? Sure.
What do you hope to accomplish you all coming together?
What do you hope to accomplish by all coming together?
Well, for us to come together, like we learn like a lot about each other, about our experiences, our culture backgrounds, and we like expand our knowledge from knowing how other people experience, and pretty much that gives us a boost in life instead of judging other people.
Question? Yeah. Have you scared all the boys by being so articulate? And, yeah.
If you have, that's their problem. That's it. Gandhi Brigade, when did it get started?
When did the Gandhi Brigade get started?
I guess when Gandhi was there.
Gandhi Brigade started in 2005. I was by Richard Jaggy, who's over there. Woot, woot. Okay.
Let's have a hand for Richard over here. Yeah. Question? Yeah.
Where are the boys?
Where are the boys, he's asking. Oh, they're up there.
Well, we actually have a few AA Lead boys representing in the crowd. Boys, would you like to say hello?
Let's give a round of applause to the boys who That's very good, letting your sisters come up here and speak. That's
And we also have some Gandhi Brigade boys here,
and some
too.
of the Gandhi Brigade boys. Great. I'd like to ask, what are some of the particular challenges? I mean, some of us are older. You are still in school. What are some of the issues that you see in trying to keep your culture going, your traditional culture? Like you're able to go to the Muslim Center, to some other place to break your fast at Ramadan, but some people go to AA Lead. How are you preserving your culture at the same time trying to fit into the American mainstream culture?
Well, from the people I hang out with, like, it's not exactly all Hispanic people or Asians. It's just a group of people. So it's really diverse. But at the same time, I go home and my mom or my grandma cook traditional Salvadoran food, or we always listen to the traditional music or just music that is well known through my culture. So that's something that helps me stay in touch with my culture, but at the same time I go to school and then I expand the knowledge I have in other cultures. And like I like the diversity at my school. It's something that's really special you don't find in a lot of places.
Yeah, like she said, I have a lot of like different race of friends, and actually in my house, we cook. My mom's cook Mexican food and all that stuff, and religions. And then I'm trying to keep my religion and my culture inside of me, and then show it to another people. Going outside and then teach them about my culture, even if they're like, oh, Mexicans are eating only burritos or just guacamole. It's not like only that. We eat a lot of typicals, a lot of type of foods, and then I'm trying to spread out, like we don't eat only that, we eat a lot of stuff, and yeah.
If we're going to have an exhibit at the Smithsonian, which is our nation's museum, and you're going to walk in there in 5 years, what one or two things would you like to see, each one of you? I'd like to hear from each of you. What one or two things would you like to see representing who you are and your culture?
Well, the specific place where my parents are from is like this city in the countryside, so not many people in Ethiopia even know about it themselves. So maybe like places where like the countryside areas and places where people don't really know it that well, like areas and like artifacts from that areas, because they have like a really rich history that many people don't even know about, because they're like, where's this place? And so, yeah.
I agree with her. No, I mean, I would want to see, I guess, well, it's not really for me, like, I guess people's stories. I found this very interesting, and, like, how we all work together and connect, and, I guess things like that, because people hear, like, you hear a lot of things about people's cultures, and you assume a lot of things from a person based on where they're from, how they look, which is I guess natural, but there's a lot of things that you don't know about people and where they go, and so I guess like stories like that would be nice to have there. So
Yeah, like she said, I mean, I want to see like, more people coming like from different places and share their stories about how they come from and how difficult it is to be here and part of be an American and then part of another country. So I want to see more like stories like us, like our stories.
Although there's a lot of Salvadorians from what I see in Maryland, there's like the culture isn't known well. Like from what I've seen, there's a pupusa truck somewhere in the corner of Wheaton, but that doesn't tell everything. Like my country is really rich in history. It's also a very beautiful place, and I want people to know that. I don't want it to usually Hispanic culture is just that, Hispanic culture all mixed together. I'd like to see Mexican culture, Ecuadorian culture, Salvadoran culture all separated it separated, and each of them have their story told, not just grouped into one big pile.
Yeah, I think it would be nice if I saw an exhibit where, like, you know, they tell stories about people's struggles coming from a different country and fitting into a new land, and I think that would be nice, and their story and like learning everything.
Well, I will like not only in Smithsonian's the museum, but all around like the U.S. to have more Asian and other country people like working. So not only like Americans are like working in America, but other people too.
Well, to me, what I like to see is like people coming into the exhibit, reading pretty much our experiences, our tradition, our cultures, to expand their knowledge about our cultures and traditions. Because most children these days, they listen to like stereotypes or racism jokes like from media or from their peers. And to me, it really irritates me because not all of them are true. And plus, you have to expand your knowledge more into that culture to understand about the situation and the problem.
Francine and Paula are two moderators here. They are still youth themselves. I mean, is there anything that you would see? You're going to be going to that exhibit in 5 years too. What do you want to see when you walk in?
Well, what I would like to see, so my family is actually from the Philippines as well, is that it would be really nice to see an exhibit about Philippine history. But another side of that is also the Filipino-American history, which is what I am. And I think that there is a very big distinction between, I guess, students like me or youth like me who have parents who have immigrated here and are born here, because the experience is very different. And I think it would be nice to see that displayed in an exhibit. And also just stories like what these young ladies have said, is just that the stories are what is important. To get to know someone, to understand where they're coming from, because that really creates an environment and a space for people to have dialogues about it and to just connect so that we can all work together. So, yeah.
Something for me that's important is just to continue having a youth voice. I feel that a lot of times in formal institutions, it's a little bit difficult to have youth really participate and really have their voice heard in exhibitions and presentations, and continuing with the storytelling, which is, I think, a very effective manner of communicating and to start dialogues, as Francine said, but really paying attention to having this youth voice be present and having, well, just a diverse array of generations from different backgrounds and ethnicities really be present.
We've had somebody with their hand up there. Is it a quick question? Yeah, so she's asking, what are some of the things that helped you to cope, particularly those of you who came as older people?
Although I came here really young, like I was only 5, it was still hard to fit in, you know, because I started out in ESOL because I didn't know English, and even then my accent was still really thick, so people would tease me about it, you know, like how kids are, like you said earlier. Yeah. So one thing that really helped me was my friends. Like, they were there to support me, tell me that even though they didn't really understand, they were there for me. They were there to comfort me. And same thing with my mom. She was going through the same thing, trying to fit in her own job, not knowing English very well. She was there, she understood what was going on, and she'd be there to comfort me. It was just basically my whole family there, because it was really different for us to go from something we've known our whole lives to a whole completely different culture where, like, there's so much more culture, more ethnicities, more diversity, and you're just, like, it's mind-blowing seeing how different one country is from another. So, yeah.
Okay, we've got one more question. What's your favorite thing about living here in Silver Spring? Let's just get one answer to that, and if there's anything else, because we have to move on to our next speakers. But
My favorite thing here is like, as the community has a Silver Spring, we have a little different types of cultures, and then we get along each other, and then that's my favorite thing, that we came together and has a one group, and then yeah.
okay, so let's thank the Gandhi Brigade, the Asian American Lead, and our panelists here. We're going to have more time for discussion later. I just want to make sure we get to our two other parts of the presentation. So thanks again. Two of you are coming back up here. And okay, as we move to the next part, I just want to acknowledge we've got many distinguished people here in the audience. We do have somebody from the White House, from the Office of Public Engagement and Intergovernmental Affairs, Felice Gorordo, is right here. Okay, great. Thank you so much for coming. Okay, so we move to the second part of the program now. Somebody who I've known through my work with the Folklife Festival, Mr. Arshad Qureshi, is the co-founder and on the Board of Trustees of the Muslim Community Center in Silver Spring. It's a group that serves thousands of families in Maryland, Virginia, and the whole D.C. area. It was first conceived as an idea in September of 1976, and it's been active since 1981. And when we put together the Folklife Festival, trying to talk about Asian Pacific Americans, we talked about the religions that are celebrated by Asian Pacific Americans. And it was so wonderful to be able to have someone as knowledgeable and compassionate and forward-looking as Mr. Qureshi. He was there to help us put together the program. And so we had good people who were speaking. And also there are so many people, Muslims, who participated in other ways, not just talking about their faith, but just being part of the program. So do you start with a PowerPoint?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, I think okay. I would like to, but before I start, I'd like to say thank you for the opportunity to present ourselves to you. We have been part of the Silver Spring for quite a while, but I was introduced as a co-founder of the Muslim Community Center, and I'm very honored and proud to say that the real founder of the Muslim Community Center is with us. He's sitting right over there very quietly, a very unassuming person, but he was the motivating force. He was the one whose persistence kept us together, and he's somebody who never got upset or angry, although we got quite a bit angry with him at times. With that introduction, I don't want to embarrass him any further, but I would like to present a few slides to you introducing, because unfortunately the misbegotten perception, I would say, is that somehow the Muslims materialized after 9/11. Well, that's not true. So if we could have the first slide. I think I'll stand up because I can't be looking back at there and talking at the same time. Unfortunately, I can only do one thing at a time. Okay, very briefly about Islam. Islam is the second largest religion in the world, and it's nearly 1.6 billion followers in all continents over the globe. It is part of the Abrahamic family of faith trio, along with the Christianity and Judaism. The followers of Islam are known as Muslims. So we are Muslims because we follow Islam. Muslims have been part of the American story ever since its inception. The very first country which recognized the United States as a sovereign, independent nation was a Muslim country. We all know it as Morocco. The very first trade treaty, which is still in place all that time, was concluded with the same Muslim nation, Morocco. A significant number of African slaves who were brought to the U.S. were Muslims. Some of them kept their faith alive under the most trying and difficult circumstances. Muslim traders and artisans from Lebanon and other parts of the Middle East and farmers from Southeast Asia have also settled in the United States quite a way back. And there are a number of very large farms over the West Coast is still run by the families of those settlers. The most recent influx of Muslim immigrants occurred in the 1960s. Most were advanced level students and highly qualified professionals. Muslim immigrants are well integrated into all walks of life. Next time you go to the hospital and the surgeon who operates on you may as well be Muslim, or the anesthesiologist, or the gynecologist, and so on and so forth. Your teachers, when you go to universities, a lot of them will be Muslims. Soldiers, policemen. So Muslims are well integrated into almost all walks of life. It's a very diverse community. Islam is all around the world, so naturally people who came to the United States, Muslims, very, very many countries of the world are represented within the broader faith description as Muslims. There are many ethnic and cultural backgrounds. They're all joined by the single common thread, which is thread of faith, or Islam. There are over 20 or so different masajes known as mosques in the Washington metropolitan area. 4 of those are located in the Silver Spring, and they provide a spiritual, social, cultural focus to the community. These masajes and the community centers provide many services to the community at large. The services include education, food and clothing, financial assistance to those in need, and disaster relief. Muslim Community Center offers a comprehensive medical clinic for the uninsured population and those in need, regardless of their faith or ethnicity. The MCC, which is short of the Muslim Community Center, MCC Medical Clinic serves approximately 8,000 plus visitors in a year. This year we might exceed that. Muslim immigrants have also enriched the architectural landscape in the Silver Spring with very distinctive architecture for the masajes. This is our masjid. This is the prayer area of the Muslim Community Center. It's located at New Hampshire Avenue, Silver Spring. This is another masjid, Islamic Society of Washington area. It's located at Brick Cheney Road in Silver Spring. This is another masjid, Masjid Baitul Rahman. This is located in Good Hope Road, Silver Spring. And this is another masjid and community center, Idare Jafriya. It is located on the Spencerville Road in Silver Spring. These buildings, they look nice, they are pretty, and they are different, and we believe that we have added to the architectural diversity and the beauty of the Silver Spring through these buildings. If we were to summarize our creed or our mission, it would be like this. We are Muslims, we are Americans, and we care. Thank you very much. Yes, please.
We have just a few minutes of a video, part of a video that Mr. Qureshi also shows at some of his presentations. So could we see the video, please?
The Muslim Community Center serves thousands of families in Maryland, Virginia, and Washington, D.C. area. The idea of the community center was first conceived in September 1976, and it was dedicated and occupied for use in May 1981, and has since grown to become a national recognized Islamic center. Muslim Community Center, or MCC, has become prominent by offering services and programs for the benefit of our community at large, such as education and health clinic. This organization is dedicated to serving all human beings.
Our educational activities consist of the Sunday school, Quranic classes, and classes for Arabic, classes for English, and any other need which our children and our adults might have. We started the clinic in 2003 because there was a great need which went unserved for the community members and our neighbors who could not afford insurance. They were out of the services provided by the state and by the insurance companies. Initially, it was a very simple operation. The need for the services continues to increase, but of course we have a limitation, mainly of the funding and space. People who cannot afford to pay the lab fees and the fees for treatments outside the clinic are provided as much as possible from the zakat and sadaqah donations by the Muslim Community Center. So therefore, nobody is actually asked to forego because they are unable to pay.
People who cannot afford, who cannot pay anything at all, we also help them with the charity. We have two different kinds of charity, zakat and the sadaqah. The Muslim people, we help them from the zakat, the money they need for the medication or the blood test or whatever need to be done. Second, if it's a non-Muslim, we give the money from the sadaqah, so we can take care of the non-Muslim and Muslim. And by the way, the clinic is open to all. We serve the whole community, Muslim and non-Muslim, and we are part of this community. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum.
The MCC clinic began operating with a monetary donation from a volunteer physician and an in-kind donation of office space donated by the Muslim Community Center of Silver Spring, Maryland. Many other people donate their time and money with a mission to provide free, high-quality medical care to uninsured, low-income adult residents of Maryland, such as Dr. Qadri, Dr. Yusuf, Dr. Nasreen Congo, Dr. Tahura Kawaja, Dr. Muhammad Khalid, late Dr. Alam, Dr. Siddiqui, and several youngsters providing office help. Dr. Muhammad Yusuf donated all his furniture when he decided to retire from his private practice. He also donated a large amount for the expansion of this clinic. Although he has officially retired several years ago, he is still seeing patients at MCC Clinic. Dr. Nasreen Congo and Dr. Siddiqui are two doctors that joined MCC Medical Clinic from the start. Though their busy schedule does not allow them to devote much time at the clinic, they are still part of our volunteer corps.
The idea was to provide some basic medical care to uninsured low-income people. At that time, we continued to provide the services. More doctors, mostly volunteers, joined the program. And initially we only had volunteer paramedical staff, but as we got busy, subsequently hired nurses and other necessary staff, including receptionists, full-time telephone operator, checkout people, accountant, etc., etc.
We've got about 3 minutes left in this part of the program. Does anybody have a particular question, or would you like to just talk a little bit more about the health clinic and about the idea that you're serving everyone? Because I think that's a really beautiful idea.
Right from the beginning, the whole idea of, actually it's not just the clinic, but there are many other services provided by the Muslim Community Center. They are not limited to just the Muslims. We are part of a larger tapestry called America. And it consists of Muslims and non-Muslims. It consists of all kinds of different people, each contributing its own color, its own strength, and its own beauty to the whole. So our services, there are many services such as the English classes for people who come to this country and want to improve their English language. There are other too many services to summarize right here. A clinic, of course, is the best known because a lot of people come there and need them, and they're open to all. Anybody regardless of their faith, regardless of their ethnicity, regardless of their ability to contribute or not contribute. You are all welcome. So please feel free to come and visit us, and you'll find us to be very welcoming and hopefully helpful in some ways.
Great. And I asked the same question to our younger participants, so I'm going to ask you. 5 years from now, you're walking into the Smithsonian, you see the new exhibit that's been put together about immigrants. What would you like to see in that exhibit?
Well, I would like to see, I like to see something broader, not in the sense that we want to perpetuate the cultures and the languages of the country that we came from. There are just too many. What I like the exhibit and the whole story is to be about how these diverse and different people coming from so many different places, not even knowing English, came together and formed something so strong and so flexible and so beautiful as United States. This is a unique experiment in the history of mankind, I believe. I think we are, but that is what I would like people to take from our stories, that how we came and commingled, not necessarily melted into a lump. We kept our individuality, but also contributed to the totality of it. That's what I like to see.
Great. Let's have applause for Mr. Qureshi. So let's move on to the third part of the program with the Latino Economic Development Corporation, and we'll hopefully have time for some questions for all our participants. Manny Hidalgo is here. He is a Cuban-American who's lived in Kentucky and before that Florida, before he came to D.C. LEDC was formed in the wake of the Mount Pleasant riots in 1991. They expanded and have opened an additional office in Maryland recently. And he's going to talk a little bit about some of his experiences and the experiences of the Latino Economic Development Corporation. So let's welcome Manny Hidalgo.
Thanks, Phil. So I want to invite you on your way out to grab one of our annual reports, because we're soon be coming out with the next one. So I'd love to get rid of as many of these as possible. No, plus it's a really good report, and it has a lot of great information about LEDC. As Phil was saying, we started 20 years ago this year in 1991, and it was the idea of several folks working for various international banks and civil rights activists that came together, and right after the Mount Pleasant riots, realized that the best way to keep the Latino community from burning things down was to get them to own things. You know, basically, everything we do is built on that premise, that those things that you own, you take care of. And so our whole mission, basically, we equip Latinos and other DC area residents with the skills and the financial tools that they need to buy or stay in a home, join with neighbors to keep rental housing affordable, and start or strengthen businesses. And we do that through a micro-lending program, through small business training and technical assistance. We help first-time home buyers, and we also help an increasing number of folks keep their homes from going into foreclosure. And we organize tenants in about 70 different buildings throughout the district, where tenants have the opportunity to purchase if they band together and form a co-op. So all told, we serve anywhere from about 3,500 to 5,000 individuals. And the whole, like I said, the whole idea is to move people into that ownership state, if you will. Basically, it's estimated, a couple of bullet points that I wanted to throw out there about the immigrant community, in particular about the Latino community. It's estimated that Latinos make up about 30% of Silver Springs residents, but certain neighborhoods like Wheaton are as high as 40%. In the county as a whole, we're a little over 16%, 16.3%. The U.S. as a whole has 50.5 million Latinos, and that represents a 56% growth from 2000 to 2010. Now, this is a conversation we were having with our friend who's visiting from the White House, Felice, and Remberto, my two fellow Cubanos right over there. That one of the most shocking things that have happened in the last several years is that the median household wealth among Latinos fell from $18,359 in 2005 to $6,235 in 2009. That's a 66% decline. So this is by far the largest decrease in wealth for any group in the United States. For black households, it fell by 53%, and for white households, it's fallen by 16%. And this is all according to newly available Census Bureau data from the Pew Research Center's Social and Demographic Trends Project. So we know that in the case of Latinos, a lot of that loss of wealth had to do with plummeting house values. That was definitely the principal cause of the erosion in wealth among all groups. But Latinos were hit the hardest in this housing market downturn. And it's basically estimated that by the time the housing recession is over, all these homes that you keep hearing about that are teetering on the edge of foreclosure, by the time all this is settled in the next few years, they will have lost over $100 billion in net wealth since this recession began. So, you know, that's all to say that if there's one community that can handle this and bounce back, in my opinion anyway, it's the Latino community. Because anybody, all right. Because folks that come from Latin America basically have already, in many ways, lost it all. In the case of my particular family, my mom is one of 14 brothers and sisters. I actually have my Aunt Mary here. And, yay, Mary. And, you know, they lost everything. Everything was taken away. They had basically, you know, a couple months to figure out how to get off the island after they put my grandfather in prison, and after they basically told him, once they took him out of prison, you have one choice, and that's to leave. My grandmother had a terrible nervous breakdown trying to move all of these kids to the United States. And those are the kind of traumas that you carry with you for the rest of your life. People who left El Salvador, I just went to El Salvador for the first time this summer with the Sister Cities program. And the resiliency of the Salvadoran people is absolutely amazing. I feel so blessed to live in a community that has so many Salvadoran people. Because these folks are survivors of the first order. These are people that just can make anything out of nothing. You wouldn't, I mean, believe the ingenuity, the innovation, the creativity, the resilience. And perhaps for me, the most important thing is the spirit of reconciliation. And these are people who went through a terrible, tragic civil war, lost, I think, some of my Salvadoran friends can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think like 70,000 people over the course of a decade. It was a brutal, brutal, savage war, and yet you go to El Salvador now, and people, you know, who back as far back as 1992, 1991 would have been, you know, literally hunting each other down, killing each other, are now building schools together, building parks together, building a country together, and so I feel that we have the right people here to help rebuild our economy from this recession, but we have a few major challenges. First of all, and I felt it was important to mention this here, is that, you know, right now the United States is aggressively and has been aggressively deporting Latinos. So much so that you know, and then this is after 20 years of basically looking the other way since the last general amnesty bill was passed in 1986. So since the recession hit really since around 2006, but particularly since the recession hit hard, I think it's as high as about 400,000 Latinos have been deported, which has torn families apart and has really, really hurt the community in many ways. But not just the community, because what I'd like to share with you is this notion, what I'd like you to think about is how we've all been impacted by this gross, in my opinion, gross miscarriage of justice. It's estimated that anywhere as much as 24% of the Latino community, about 12 million people, lack the work authorization is what I call it. They lack authorization to work. Doesn't mean you can't be self-employed, by the way, but they lack the authorization to be hired. So come to LEDC if you want to learn how to be self-employed. That's basically 1 in every 4 Latinos that lacks this work authorization. What does this, you know, what does this mean? This basically means that we have a huge amount of work ahead of us, and some of that work entails convincing those in the mainstream just how urgent this situation is. I happen to be on the board of a pretty mainstream organization that will go unnamed because it really doesn't matter. This can happen to any organization that is made up of nonprofit professionals from all over the DC area. And it has been hell just to get this group to consider that this issue is one that needs our collective attention. Too often we think of it as a Latino issue or as an immigrant issue. And the fact is it's an issue that affects all of us, because at the end of the day, why is it that this economy is so dependent on cheap labor? And it's because you have a shrinking middle class. Think for a second how much it would cost, that same basket of food, if you were paying a living wage for it. They say anywhere from like a $16 basket of food would cost about triple. Think how much it would cost to pay for daycare, to pay for that meal that you had at the restaurant perhaps tonight or this weekend, for the landscapers you hired. Think of the subcontractors who did all this amazing construction and grew this economy by leaps and bounds before the recession hit. All that would not have taken place had we not had this incredible source of ingenuity, creativity, and hard work. And to turn around now and say, get out, is insulting beyond comprehension. And that's why I feel that I'm going to go ahead and answer your question, Phil, as far as what I want to see in this exhibit. What I want to see, and plus, it's probably getting a little late, is how Silver Spring took this issue by the horns and did something about it. I want to see how Silver Spring stood up and said, no to secured communities. You are not deporting anybody from here, because these are our neighbors, and these people are going to stay. This is Silver Spring. We're an immigrant community, and I would love for Silver Spring, and I think it can happen, particularly with the leadership of some of the people in this room, like Ramberto and Bruce Adams. And we have some incredible folks working at the county level and the nonprofit level, people like Richard Jaggi. We have so many wonderful people here, Ronnie Galvin, I think Karen Roper I see up there. We have all these people who are so committed to this issue of economic and social justice that if any community can make this happen, it is Silver Spring. And so that's what I hope that we take from here, is this sense of economic justice, and this sense that we can collectively show America, particularly places like Alabama, what they're missing. So that's all I have to say.
That's the end of our organized three-part presentation. I wanted to, at this point, open the floor to comments and questions, and in particular, I'd like to start by thanking some people who have helped to put the program together, who are not here on the stage, but who, through their actions over many decades, have helped to build the beautiful Silver Spring community that we're all enjoying. So he mentioned Ronnie Galvin, who's Executive Director of Impact Silver Spring, Dr. Wanjiro Kamau, who's the founder and director of the African Immigrant and Refugee Foundation, who, by the way, is a winner of the Purpose Prize for her work with African immigrants. Jerry McCoy, who we just mentioned, who is the founder and president of Silver Spring Historical Society. Charlotte Caulfield, who's with the Lyottsville Civic Association. And Ramberto Rodriguez, who you mentioned, who's director of Silver Spring Regional Center. First of all, could those 5 people stand up so we can just give them a round of applause and thank them very much for... And if you do have comments, could you please go over to where Lauren is with the microphone, or over here? Why don't we let, if any of those 5 people want to get started with a comment, do you want to speak first, and then we'll have others? And could you say your names and then keep very brief comments? We don't have too much time.
Don't push me, because I'm close to the edge. I'm trying not to lose my head. Ha 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 ha. The old school heads know that song. My name is Ronnie Galvin. I am the executive director of Impact Silver Spring. We've had the good pleasure of building a thriving multicultural community here in Silver Spring, thanks to the indomitable spirit of folks like Frankie Blackburn, who's in the room with us. Brother Tababu, who's standing up and being recognized by the room, and so many others who are with us tonight. I thought I heard a trajectory in the conversation that I just wanted to acknowledge and appreciate. First of all, can we give our young people another round of applause for sharing their story? we came here tonight to hear stories of immigration, and the young people were really, really clear about their stories, their family stories, and their struggles. And then Brother Qureshi, who's shown up with us in many, many places and spaces, has shared with us the beauty of the Muslim Community Center and the wonderful community that is amassed there. And then Manny really brought it home around how the stories of immigration and the families who are here now, how they're living now, and what their challenges are now. And I'm really I love the stories. I'm glad that the young people are here, but I have to admit, as we're out knocking on doors, I'm really enamored about now, right? And Manny, thank you for riling us up, because I know we're here tonight talking about the Smithsonian exhibit that could happen, that will happen. Everybody say will happen. That will happen 5 years from now. But how could an institution like the Smithsonian, together with all of these wonderful nonprofits and this larger public square that's here tonight, do something now with these stories so that we begin to shake the structures that are negatively impacting the lives of folks that are in our community? And I'm glad you asked. I just have one idea. I'm glad you asked. That I'm wondering if, even though we're talking about an exhibit that's going to happen in the future, perhaps in Washington, D.C., is there a way for us to create a space, Qureshi, Mr. Qureshi, much like the space at the Muslim Community Center, here in Silver Spring, right now, where people from all walks of life can come together and share their stories of trial, tribulation, and overcoming, about how they got here to this community and their quality of life, and that we become so inspired from the storytelling that's in those spaces that we take action now to affect people's lives, young people, old, and folks from all over the country now. And so it's a bit of a call and a challenge. How can we do this more now? Thank you.
Just responding partially to what Ronnie's saying, coming out of the Folklife Festival in 2010, we had some people who were so interested in talking about their history that afterwards I worked with some of them to help to produce the Sikh community put together their own oral histories of some of the elders in their community. And I know we have a number of the curators and other professionals from the Folklife Center and from the other APA Center, Latino Center, the other groups within the Smithsonian that put together this program. And many of them are trained in being able to help you with your community histories, your oral histories. So if there are community groups here that want to follow up on this and do more oral histories, that's certainly something we can talk about. I can't promise that because I can't speak on behalf of the Smithsonian, but I know I'm seeing a lot of nodding heads here. You could definitely get people coming in as volunteers, as individuals, even if we can't move as the whole Smithsonian. But Smithsonian is dedicated to research and scholarship and helping to promote your stories. So that's something that we do want to promote here in Silver Spring.
If I may add just one thing, I welcome your thinking about creating something now and creating in a Silver Spring. I think that should be the inspiring thought into that. Fortunately, we have several people from Muslim community here. We have our chairman of the Interfaith Committee sitting quietly over there. And so hopefully, and I will certainly convey your message back to there. The one thing I just want to say is that Muslim Community Center is an entirely volunteer organization. We are not supported by anybody except through the generosity of the volunteers. And in that sense, we invite you and anybody else who want to do something to come and join hands with us. And we'll be very happy to be part of it. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Tabebu Asafa. I live in Takoma Park. I'm a father of two. I'm a very proud resident of Takoma Park and Silver Spring with all the challenges and the opportunities at hand. First, I'd like to share what I'd like to see 5 years from now at the Smithsonian. I'd like to see a big statement, a big wording that says we are the community. Because in so many circles I sit to listen to a conversation about the community. Sometimes the community is out there. Sometimes the community has a problem. It's never we are the community. There is always that undertone. It's about some community that have some problem. all kind of problems we have in our community. But in the discussion in the circle, I see fingers being pointed. In fact, I was in a bank, and the bank manager was once, expressing his vision to the community, and he said to me, "We want to give back." And I asked him, "What did you take? When did you take it?" You know, and so 5 years from now, when I come to the Smithsonian, I'd like to see, maybe the word should be "we is a community," because people miss the point. Not "we are the community." We're missing it. And the second point I'd like to make is, in terms of community, sometimes I see vital, important, vibrant member of our community justifying their relevance in this dialogue. We have to stop that. Okay, we have to stop justifying our importance. We have to we have to stop justifying our relevance. Each and every one of us are together. Together we stand, otherwise we'll perish. And that has to be, excuse my being boldness, we have to be very bold. We have to be true to ourselves. Otherwise all this discourse, all this discussion is irrelevant. And unless the sense of I and the we is spiritually harmonized, unless I am because we are, and we are because I am, unless that's psychologically, spiritually, financially, socially underscored, all the other one is a game. So thank you very much.
Okay, we have a question over here.
Hi, I'm Dave Rabinowitz, a long-time volunteer at the Smithsonian. And basically, when you're talking about this exhibit 5 years from now, the exhibit's already there. There already is this exhibit at the National Museum of American History. I believe it's called Communities in a Changing Nation. And it basically tells exactly the story of immigrant communities in the US, except it tells a story of what was happening in the 19th century, 150 years ago or so. And the point is that the story people are telling today has been going on since Jamestown 400 years ago. My mother could have sat on the stage and told almost identical stories to what the girls told today. And probably just about everybody in this auditorium has either a parent or a grandparent or a great-grandparent who could tell the same story. This has been going on forever in this country, and this new exhibit would not be a new exhibit, it'd just be an updated exhibit. And the one difference, and the thing that concerns me, is this talk about preserving culture. Because in the past, we used to really boast about the US being a melting pot. And that didn't just mean that people came in and became Americans. It meant that people and their cultures came in and became part of the whole stew that's America. Most people probably don't realize that the Founding Fathers did not drink beer. They got drunk on apple cider, hard cider. Beer didn't become popular in American culture until the big German migration in the 19th century. And lots of, I mean, all this stuff, what we see as standard American culture is stuff that has changed based on immigrants coming in. And it's continuing to change, and it's going to continue to change. And we have to realize, if you look at countries where people try to preserve their own culture, Yugoslavia has become Serbia and Croatia after killing each other. What used to be Czechoslovakia is now the Czech Republic and Slovakia and Slovenia, and we see that all over the world. I think the melting pot is something really worth preserving.
Okay, thank you. And we just want to acknowledge the beer-drinking Americans here who are in the audience. Okay, we've got about 3 minutes, and we've got 3 people who want to speak, so please.
Yes, very, very quickly. So the word resilience struck with me when I was hearing you say it as to who's recovered from how much. 5 years ago, I was in the Katrina area where indeed they lost everything. And I see a similarity. I mean, I know we're talking about migration as if it's an international thing, but I also see that it's an internal thing because we had a number of people had to migrate away from their destroyed homes because of all the help we gave our own. So there's that dimension. Then there's a question, hearing so many nice things about Islam and Muslim, what's not to like? How come we got, what's all the fuss?
That's what I've been trying to find out.
I've been told that we actually have until 1:15, so If there are people who do have to go, if you have parenting responsibilities or other things, please feel free to go. But we do have some extra time, and I do want to make sure that everyone has a chance to speak. So why don't we say we're going to be here till 8:45, so we can have a few more questions. And don't forget, for those who have to leave, please check out the literature that's on the tables out there. Please be sure to fill in an index card if you got some ideas, if you want to leave your name and number, or you can leave anonymous feedback on what we've done here, because this is the beginning of a conversation. This is a project that's going to go on for years. The Smithsonian is dedicated to this, and it's going to be a very, very important initiative. So please.
I'm Sabir Rahman from Muslim Community Center, and I'm inspired by what Ronnie said. Ronnie, I'm going to go on the limb and make an offer. Muslim Community Center will start a once-a-month program for everyone to come and tell their stories. Can I count on you to work with me?
Wow, that's a pretty substantive thing to come out of this. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Tamara Arsenault, and I was born at Holy Cross Hospital, and I'm a Silver Spring native. I also happen to work across the street at CHF International, which is a humanitarian relief and development organization, and we often don't do enough to plug back into the diaspora community of people from the countries where we're often implementing programs. But one of the comments I wanted to make was, I think, having been a part of the transformation of Montgomery County, is the amazing role that Montgomery County Public Schools have played. And Silver Spring in particular is blessed to be at the heart of, just a stone's throw, the Spanish immersion program, and in the other direction, the French immersion program, and the Silver Spring International Middle School. And it's something that I think Montgomery County was very pioneering in its efforts from the very beginning to incorporate diversity and the importance of maintaining, two languages and offering that opportunity to other students. And it's something that really hasn't, unfortunately, been financed to make that gift more widely available. And so I guess if the Smithsonian, exhibit is going to look at Silver Spring in particular, I think, and how the immigrant experience has transformed the county and enriched the county, then I think the role that Montgomery County Public Schools have played in that process and how it has helped bring and incorporate this diversity and make out of it, as the other gentleman talked about, the brilliance of bringing these many different cultures together. I think our school system has played an incredible role in that.
Speaking to Ms. Arsenault's point, my grandmother told me at a very young age, she had come from Japan as a young woman, she said, I speak with an accent because I'm fluent in another language. And it impressed me quite a bit, because here I was thinking, if you speak with an accent, you must not be very intelligent. And then I realized, oh, my grandmother is extremely intelligent, and that's the type of lesson we need to bring to everybody, frankly. Do we have other questions? Any of our youth want to add any comments based on what you've heard tonight? Any of our speakers want to say a closing statement or ask a question of each other?
Actually, before Ronnie, one quick thing I wanted to say about the point about the melting pot, which I think it's an excellent point. There's a Cuban sociologist named Fernando Ortiz who wrote about something that he called acculturation, right? And it's this whole concept that a place like Cuba saw all kinds of folks come. You had your Taino natives, and then you had, of course, white Europeans, you had Africans, you had Chinese, you had people coming from all over the world. And what he discovered was that every time a new culture came to the island, they basically acculturated, and they, as a result, the dominant culture changed. So in two coming together, you become something entirely different. And that's, I think, what we see here in America, is that as we bring more and more people, and to your point, I mean, we really are the world's example of diversity, right? When you bring all these different cultures together, we consistently are changing and evolving and acculturating. And that's uniquely American.
So just a quick question that's been on my mind. I've heard some amazing stories of people's immigration to this country, some very harrowing stories, and we've talked about some of those circumstances tonight. I'm wondering, and you know, I've done a lot of work in African American communities, and have seen how kind of historical experiences of trauma, generational experiences of trauma, can impact people's ability to move along various kind of quality of life pathways and opportunities. And not offering that as an excuse, I mean, because we talk about it when people come back from war and all kinds of things. And but as I listen to some of the stories of people coming out of their countries here, right, some of them are like brutally tragic and traumatic. And I'm wondering if we are seeing some of the effects of that trauma showing up in our communities, and how are people, if it is, how are people coping with that, right? Particularly the parents, right? The adults that come here and who may have experienced some kind of trauma as they were exiting their country and making their way here. Is it showing up? How are people coping? And are there mechanisms out there for our sisters and brothers from other countries to address that here so that they can have and pursue the quality of life that they came here for?
These are all good questions. We can't answer every question tonight, but that's part of what we're doing here. Part of good research means asking good questions.
Can I try to respond to some of that? I think you are very right that a lot of people came to this country as a result of difficulties in the lands and the cultures that they originally were. And that latent trauma and the trauma which resulted from the rigors of leaving behind what they had known all their life and then adjusting to something totally new can cause its own trauma. But also, not everybody who came here came as a result of that big force to exit. Some, like most of us, the professional Muslims who came in late 60s, made this country, came to this country by choice. And I think that their story need to be heard, that it wasn't simply the love for almighty dollar, because most of these people could have found just as good jobs or as good a place in the community that they were in there, but they chose America for some reason. And I can speak from that perspective, and then I'll come back to the trauma part. We have always looked at United States as that shining city on the hill, something to be aspired to and something to get to. But we also realize that all those glitter and all those lights consist of individual lights, each light contributing its own wavelength to the total spectrum, and that's how it becomes so bright. And so when we came here, admittedly, we came here for personal advancements, but the idea was there that we want to contribute to that totality of things, to improve on what is already, what was already there. And that's why my favorite impression of the United States is that of a tapestry, that we are all different threads. We may have different colors, we may have even been woven at different times, but we all contribute our strengths to the totality and beauty of it, which is enduring and pleasing. As far as the trauma, whatever the result of, wherever it may have come from, all immigrants, whether they are forced to come here or they come here by choice, go through what I like to call a period of adjustment. And yes, there is trauma in that all those lights which will glitter so brightly from distance, when you come here, lose some of their luster. But that's where the good fortune which I guess we had was that we did not come here expecting somebody to take care of us. We came here to stand on our own 2 feet, and we decided that we are going to build infrastructure essentially for ourselves to begin with, which would smooth the transition into the American society, and that has helped a lot. So relying on self-help and not always necessarily looking for somebody somewhere else to come and help, that's a very important part of it. Muslim Community Center and most of the Muslim community centers around this country are really voluntary organizations. They were formed by volunteers to solve essentially the part that the trauma, if you like to call it, or the inconvenience of settling from a known culture into a new culture. But I also want to say that while it's wonderful to remember the richness of your culture, and believe me, where we come from, the culture and history is measured in thousands of years, not in hundreds. So we know what culture and what history is all about. But in order to continue to live in that, in order to continue to try to perpetuate it in a land which we chose and we call ours, I think it's better that we perpetuate and we strengthen and beautify the history and culture which is unique in the whole world, which is United States. That's what I would like to say.
Okay, so Paula or Francine, you want to concluding remarks?
Well, I guess just to conclude, for the event, I've just been inspired mostly by my youth, but also just seeing everyone come together to talk about one issue. It's really inspiring for me. I'm also a Silver Spring native, so I was born here as well. And I really like seeing different generations coming together and talking about the same issues. So I'm looking forward to continuing this dialogue with everyone and hopefully giving some more information and making this exhibit great in the future. So thank you.
Thank you. And Paula?
I'm a very new person to Silver Spring. Honestly, I just started working at Gandhi Brigade just 3 months ago. So I'm very new to this area. So for me, it's just very exciting to really get a sample of all of the active communities and all of the active organizations that make this place a community and that really are moving forward to better some of the issues that are present and to really come together despite our differences. And I think that we should definitely continue this. And I'm excited to hopefully, with Gandhi Brigade, getting in touch with all these different organizations and see how we can move forward.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, I just have one thing to say. I'm a triple hyphen 50-year-old immigrant, and I applaud what you said about the trauma center. I think most of us who are first and second generation Americans are people who are pretty independent minded. We come here on top of a tidal wave that we can't explain, from very, very old cultures that we can't explain. But something tells us to push and push forward. And at some point, you crash. You're a part of a tidal wave and you will crash on the beach. And you recognize that, you're no longer defined by what is in back of you, but what is in front of you. And when we crash, we're not crashing in some place that recognizes us as part of the fabric of America. We have crashed, and we've crashed as the other. And for those of us that look like me, and although I speak like an American, I am a Latina, and I am of a Caribbean and African descent, and I carry all of that with me. And when I crashed, which I did, there was nobody there to receive me. I had to pull myself up by myself. And I'm thinking about all these young people here. We need crash stations. Okay? We need crash stations that can be, when you crash, you might be on the street. And all of a sudden you realize, oh, I'm not my mother. I'm no longer a Panamanian. I'm no longer from Africa. I'm no longer from. I am an American, and yet nobody around me sees me that way. So we need emergency crash stations. Silver Spring is the perfect place to have that. And I applaud the Muslim Center for volunteering their services, but also AFI should do something. Also, the hospital should do something. And it could be done in the form of the arts, in the form of a mother with an ear. You know, think about it. There are creative ways of doing it. And Smithsonian is 2 subway trains away. Smithsonian needs to be here to collect those stories and to provide just a helping hand. It doesn't cost much money. And the benefits will be enormous to these children and to this community. So I applaud you on what you're doing. Much success. Thank you.
Are you waiting over there to ask questions? No? Okay. A question? Please come to the mic. And then we're going to have to wrap it up after this. So.
I guess about your question about what will be exhibited in Smithsonian. A lot of times people talk about immigrants, they only talk about the first generation, usually, or 1.5 generation, kind of like me. But I'm just wondering if you can have an exhibit where you actually take a family and see how the family changes or acculturated to the United States. Because I know that my mother's life was very different from mine, and I came here as a teenager, and my life is definitely different. And then my son, who's born here and raised here, and his life is different. But I'm sure that his children will be different too. So I think I'm sure when you look at the history of the United States, that has always been going on. But maybe we need to make that more visual and more tangible. Thank you.
Speaking for the Asian Pacific American program, there have been some discussions of books. There was one program related to the C family, the SEE family, that showed several generations of people. I know the Latino Center and others have tried to do this also, but you're right, we need to look not just at individuals, but in individuals embedded within families and communities. So that's a very good suggestion.
Thank you.
At this point, thank you very much. At this point, we'd like to thank everyone for coming. We're going to bring Faith back up here to help to close the program. Take it away, Faith.
Thank you all for coming. We are really excited about how many people came out. We weren't sure how many people would come, but this shows us that there's a tremendous interest in this community, and we know that a lot of you got here through the hard work of our community partners who are listed on the back of the program, so therefore I won't read them all to you. I also want to thank the people specifically who put this program together, the local conversation team of the Americans All team, and Lauren Safronic, who is our new project coordinator. I also want to thank again the Smithsonian Consortium on understanding the American experience, which provided the funding for this project. Don't forget to write down any comments or ideas that you have on the index cards and drop them off in the Smithsonian table in the lobby. Please be sure to visit our brand new website, which is www.americansall.si.edu. It is on the program, so you don't have to write it down. And continue to participate. This is just the first of a number of conversations that we plan to sponsor. First, some more locally, and then some national conversations with affiliate partners, and we're in the planning process for that now. Some people have talked about the Smithsonian activities that we plan to do. The entities within the Smithsonian that are participating on this team, particularly the Asian Pacific American Center, the Latino Center, and the Center for Folklife and Cultural Heritage, already do a wide variety of programming that relates to this topic. And we participate along with them in sponsoring and having those activities. But we plan to do more activities that bring together distinct groups of people, such as the Silver Spring community, a distinct community, together to talk across various kinds of discussions, various kinds of perhaps sometimes boundaries. We're really concerned about generational conversations. We want to maintain the voice of young people in preparing our programming, our collecting efforts, our Folklife Festival that may happen in 2015 and a major new exhibition that may happen in 2016 or 17. We aren't only interested in the first generation. That's very important because some of us here are anthropologists and folklorists. Some of us are historians and very interested in the deep past as well as the present. So we're very interested in looking at internal migration as well as immigration. That's an important thing to understand about this project. It's not solely about immigration because it's really a project about the peopling of the United States. So you can't understand where people are today in the United States if you just talk about immigration. Lots of people have moved around in this country from where they may have entered. We also are inclusive in the different kinds of ways people came to the United States. Some came voluntarily, some came involuntarily and were brought. That's still happening at times today. Some people came as the result of traumas in their own countries. Other people came for economic opportunity, not as the result of particular trauma. Some peoples were incorporated into the United States. They didn't move, but the boundaries moved around them. So all of these ways are different experiences that characterize the history of the United States. Of course, we know that all the nations of the Americas are nations in which immigration has taken place because of that longer 500-year history, post-contact history. But the United States, statistically, is the most diverse nation in the world. It has communities, descent communities from every nation on Earth. And even places like China, India, Brazil, Australia, places that are very large and have very large populations, do not have the level of diversity from all around the world as the United States. So it is one of the very interesting, perhaps unique aspects of the American experience that we think we have a cultural framework that says something like e pluribus unum, out of many one. So with that, I'll say good night. Thank you for coming and enjoy the rest of your evening.